There's a private cinema that lights up in your head when you least expect it. The film, always the same one, replays your conversations, every word, every pause, every glance, and you're there as both spectator and critic at the same time. Maybe I shouldn't have said that. What were they really thinking? I made such a fool of myself. If you recognize yourself in this, stop for a moment, because what you're about to discover could completely change the way you see this habit of yours. We've been conditioned to think that this is a defect, a bug in the system called overthinking or rumination. But what if I told you that it's actually the indicator of an operating system far more advanced than average? That behind this mental cinema hide rare and honestly very powerful psychological traits. Today we're going deep, dismantling this preconception and discovering 7 superpowers you probably didn't know you had. And I guarantee that by the end, you'll look at your mind with a bit more admiration. Let's start with a piece of data that will leave you amazed. Psychological research has shown that even just after 5 minutes, people who actively participate in a conversation can remember between 70 and 90% of specific details, both verbal and nonverbal. The point is that those who mentally review conversations don't do it because they have a defective memory, but on the contrary, because they have a high-fidelity one. Your brain isn't inventing anything, it's processing an enormous amount of real data that it has recorded. While most people archive conversations in low resolution, your mind saves them in 4,000 quality. Replaying the scene isn't a sign of insecurity. It's your brain zooming in on details to extract every single piece of useful information. It's not a loop, it's a high-definition replay. If the previous trait hasn't already made a light bulb go off, this one will. It's very likely that you're a highly sensitive person, and no, that doesn't mean being fragile or overly emotional. It's an innate neurobiological trait. The most recent research tells us that highly sensitive people aren't a small niche, but constitute almost 30% of the population. This means that almost 1 in 3 people processes the world with greater depth and intensity. Your nervous system is like a seismograph. It picks up subtle vibrations that escape others. A conversation for you isn't just a dialogue. It's a total immersion in a sea of stimuli, tones of voice, body language, the energy of the room. Thinking back on it afterwards is a biological necessity to process this tide of information. You never thought about it that way, did you? This same trait has been identified in over 100 other animal species, which suggests it's an incredibly useful evolutionary survival strategy. Here's another bombshell. Emotional memory is much more powerful and lasting than purely factual memory. When you replay a conversation, you're not just remembering the words, you're reliving the emotions. And this is a sign of superior emotional intelligence. Your brain doesn't settle for what was said, but digs into how it made me feel and how the other person felt. The amygdala, the emotional control center of our brain, activates much more during emotionally charged events, imprinting those memories with greater force. You use this function to your advantage. Mental replay is your way of decoding the unspoken language of emotions, of understanding relational dynamics at a level that escapes those who stop at the facts. It's like having an emotional rewind function that allows you to learn and grow from every interaction. This tendency of yours makes you an incredible analyst of human data. While others see conversations, you see connections. Rethinking interactions allows you to identify patterns of behavior that repeat over time. You notice that a person becomes evasive when certain topics are discussed, or that a friend uses self-deprecating humor when feeling insecure. This isn't paranoia, it's data analysis. You're unconsciously building a highly detailed map of the personalities of those around you. This ability gives you an enormous strategic advantage in relationships. It allows you to understand people more deeply, to communicate more effectively, and to anticipate potential conflicts. You are in effect a behavioral profiler working for the good of your relationships. This is perhaps the most powerful idea of all. Your brain has an extraordinary capacity called neuroplasticity. It can change its structure and functions based on experience. Every time you replay a conversation and imagine how you could have responded differently, you're not just daydreaming, you're actively training your brain, creating and strengthening new neural pathways for future social interactions. It's like an athlete who visualizes the race before running it. You're visualizing and rehearsing future conversations. It's not passive rumination, it's active and self-directed mental training. You're literally sculpting your brain to become a better communicator, more empathetic, and more aware. It's the purest form of self-improvement at the neurological level. If you worry so much about what you said and how it was perceived, it's because inside you have an extremely sensitive moral compass. You truly care about the impact of your actions on others. It's not a matter of appearing, but of being. This deep sense of responsibility and ethical conscience pushes you toward constant self-analysis. In a world that often promotes selfishness and thinking only of yourself, your concern for the emotional well-being of others is an act of profound integrity. This can be a burden, certainly, but it's also what makes you a trustworthy person, a loyal friend, and a conscious partner. It's your integrity that drives you to check and double-check to make sure you've acted in line with your values. The last trait has a somewhat technical name, but it's fascinating. You're an expert in counterfactual thinking. It means thinking about how things could have gone differently. What if I had said? What if I had done? Psychologists have discovered that this ability is closely linked to creativity and problem-solving ability. When you explore alternative scenarios, you're doing exactly what an artist, an inventor, or a strategist does. You're imagining possibilities that don't exist yet. This mental process trains your divergent thinking, the ability to find multiple and original solutions to a problem. So the next time your mind wanders into a what-if, don't stop it. Know that you're lighting up the same brain circuits that lead to great ideas and innovations. Okay, so you have these gifts, but how do you use and manage them without getting crushed? The goal isn't to turn them off, but to learn to regulate their volume. First, use the time box technique. Give yourself a defined time, let's say 15 minutes, to analyze the conversation. Set a timer. When it rings, stop. Tell your mind thank you for your work. Now let's move on to something else. Second, change the key question. Instead of asking yourself, what did I do wrong? Ask yourself, what did I learn? Shift the focus from self-criticism to learning. This transforms a potentially painful process into a growth tool. Third, practice the principle of charitable interpretation. Start from the assumption that the other person didn't have bad intentions and most likely didn't even. Notice that detail that obsesses you. Most people are too focused on themselves to analyze you with the same intensity. So the next time your mind starts the replay, take a deep breath and smile. You're not defective, you're deep. You're not going crazy, you're processing. And in that depth, in that capacity for analysis, lies a series of rare and incredibly valuable gifts. Learn to know them, manage them, and use them to make the world and your relationships a better place.